The sun hung low over the jagged horizon of the Arizona territory, casting long shadows across the dusty plains like fingers reaching out from the grave. Elijah Harlan had called this forsaken patch of land home for nigh on 15 years, ever since he'd fled the chaos of the Civil War with nothing but a worn-out saddle and a Colt revolver strapped to his hip. His ranch was a modest affair, a weathered cabin, a corral for his half-dozen horses, and acres of scrub brush that barely sustained his cattle. Loneliness was his constant companion, thicker than the sagebrush that dotted the landscape. Folks in the nearby town of Dust Creek whispered that Elijah was cursed, that his wife had died under mysterious circumstances back east, leaving him a hollow shell of a man. But Elijah didn't pay them no mind. He preferred the silence of the wind howling through the canyons to the prying eyes of strangers. One scorching afternoon in the summer of 1887, as Elijah mended a fence under the relentless blaze, a cloud of dust rose on the eastern trail. He squinted against the glare, wiping sweat from his brow with a ragged bandana. Riders? No, just one figure, mounted on a massive black stallion that looked like it could trample a man without breaking stride. As the rider drew closer, Elijah's jaw tightened. It wasn't a man at all. It was a woman, and not just any woman. She towered in the saddle, her frame broad and imposing, easily 6.5 feet tall, with shoulders like a blacksmith's and legs that gripped the horse with unyielding strength. Her dress was black as midnight, morning weeds that fluttered like raven wings in the breeze. A wide-brimmed hat shaded her face, but even from a distance, Elijah could see the sharp angles of her jaw and the piercing blue eyes that seemed to cut through the heat haze. She reined in her horse a few yards from him, the beast snorting and pawing the ground. Elijah straightened up, his hand instinctively hovering near his holster. "Ma'am," he said, tipping his hat, "this here's private land. What brings you out this way?" The woman dismounted with a grace that belied her size, her boots thudding heavily on the parched earth. Up close, she was even more formidable. Her hands were calloused and strong, capable of wrangling a steer or snapping a neck. A faint scar ran down her left cheek, a remnant of some long-ago brawl or accident. "Name's Widow Blackwell," she said, her voice deep and resonant, like thunder rolling over the mountains. "Abigail Blackwell. Heard tell there's a rancher out here who knows these parts better than anyone. That you?" Elijah nodded slowly, unease prickling his skin. "Elijah Harlan. And yeah, I reckon I do. But I ain't in the business of guiding folks. Got work to do." Abigail's lips curled into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I ain't asking for a guide, Harlan. I'm looking for something else. Water, for starters. My horse is parched, and so am I." He glanced at her stallion, noting the foam around its mouth. Hospitality was scarce in these parts, but refusing could invite trouble. "Well, trough's over by the cabin. Help yourself. But don't linger. I like my solitude." She led her horse toward the water without another word, her strides long and purposeful. Elijah watched her go, a knot forming in his gut. Widows in black didn't just wander the frontier without a story, and hers felt heavy, like a storm cloud gathering force. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Abigail didn't leave. Instead, she tied her horse to the hitching post and approached the cabin door. "Mind if I sit a spell?" she asked, not waiting for an answer before settling onto the porch step. Elijah grumbled but fetched a tin cup of water from inside, handing it to her. She drank deeply, her throat working in powerful swallows. "You're a long way from anywhere, Widow Blackwell," he said, leaning against the doorframe. "What really brings you here?" She set the cup down, her eyes locking onto his. "My husband was killed 6 months back, shot down in a saloon brawl over a card game, left me with nothing but debts and a thirst for justice. Word is, the man who did it headed west, through these territories. Big fella, goes by Red Jack, scar on his neck like a noose mark. You seen anyone like that?" Elijah shook his head. "Can't say I have. Folks don't come this way unless they're lost or running, and I don't get involved in other people's feuds." Abigail leaned back, her massive form casting a shadow over him. "Smart man, but sometimes feuds find you, whether you want 'em or not. That night, a fierce windstorm whipped up, howling like a banshee and rattling the cabin shutters. Elijah offered her the barn for shelter, but she insisted on the spare room inside, said the hay would aggravate her lungs. He relented, figuring one night wouldn't hurt. But as he lay in his bed, listening to the creak of floorboards under her weight, sleep evaded him. There was something off about her, something predatory in the way she moved, like a mountain lion sizing up prey. Come morning, Abigail was up before dawn, frying eggs and bacon on his stove as if she owned the place. "Figured I'd earn my keep," she said when he stumbled in, bleary-eyed. The smell was heavenly, a reminder of domesticity long forgotten. They ate in silence, the clink of forks the only sound. Afterward, she helped with chores, mending tack, hauling water from the well with ease that made Elijah feel small. Her strength was unnatural. She lifted bales of hay like they were feathers. Days turned into a week. Abigail didn't leave, and Elijah didn't press her. Truth be told, her presence filled the void he'd grown accustomed to ignoring. She told stories by the firelight, tales of her life back in Kansas, where she'd grown up on a farm, towering over her siblings from a young age. "They called me Giant Abby," she laughed, her voice booming. "Pa said I was built for hard times." Her husband, she said, had been a gambler, charming but reckless. His death had hardened her, turned her into a hunter. Elijah shared bits of his past too, the war's horrors, the wife lost to fever, the endless solitude. For the first time in years he felt seen, not just as a reclusive rancher but as a man with scars of his own. But unease lingered. Strange things happened around the ranch. Cattle went missing, their tracks leading into the canyons only to vanish. Elijah spotted fresh boot prints near the corral, too small to be Abigail's, and at night he'd swear he heard whispers on the wind, like voices plotting in the dark. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the stars emerge, Abigail turned to him. "You ever think about starting over, Elijah? Leaving this dust bowl behind?" He sipped his coffee, staring into the night. "Every damn day. But where would I go? This is all I know." She placed a hand on his arm, her grip firm yet gentle. "With me, we could track down Red Jack together, split whatever bounty there is, build something new." Her touch sent a shiver through him, a mix of fear and longing. He pulled away. "I ain't no bounty hunter, Abigail, and you're trouble. I can feel it." Her eyes darkened. "Trouble finds the lonely, Harlan, and you're the loneliest man I've ever met." The next day a rider arrived, a scrawny boy from Dust Creek bearing a telegram. Elijah read it aloud. "Red Jack spotted in Yuma. Armed and dangerous. Reward $500. Abigail's face lit up like a prairie fire. "T. His is it. We ride at dawn." But Elijah hesitated. This ain't my fight." She stood, looming over him. "It is now. You've sheltered me, fed me, I owe you. And besides, you need this, a purpose beyond rotting out here alone." Reluctantly, he agreed. They packed supplies, saddled horses, and set out under a blood-red sunrise. The trail to Yuma was treacherous. Rattlesnake-infested gullies, blistering heat, and Apache territory where a wrong turn meant death. Abigail rode like she was born to it, her black dress billowing, her rifle slung across her back. Elijah marveled at her endurance. She never complained, never tired. Along the way, they camped under the stars. One night, by a flickering campfire, she leaned close. "You know, Elijah, in another life we could have been something—" He met her gaze, the fire reflecting in her eyes. "Maybe in this one, too." She kissed him then, fierce and demanding, her lips tasting of salt and smoke. He responded, years of isolation melting away in that embrace. But as passion built, a doubt nagged at him. Her strength, her secrets. He pulled back. "What aren't you telling me, Abigail?" She smiled mysteriously. "All in good time." They reached Yuma 2 days later, a bustling border town teeming with outlaws, miners, and drifters. Dust swirled in the streets, mingling with the stench of whiskey and unwashed bodies. They tied their horses outside the Silver Spur Saloon, where the telegram said Red Jack frequented. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and laughter. Elijah scanned the room, poker tables, a piano player banging out a tune, barmaids weaving through the crowd. In the corner, a man matching the description, burly, red-haired, a jagged scar circling his neck like a hangman's rope. "That's him," Abigail whispered, her voice laced with venom. They approached cautiously. Red Jack looked up from his cards, his eyes narrowing. "What? Do you want, giantess? And who's the scarecrow with you?" Abigail drew her pistol faster than Elijah could blink. "You killed my husband, you son of a bitch. Now you'll pay." The saloon erupted in chaos. chairs scraping, patrons diving for cover. Red Jack overturned the table, firing wildly. Elijah ducked behind the bar, returning fire. Bullets splintered wood, shattered glasses. Abigail charged like a bull, her shots precise, grazing Red Jack's arm. He bolted for the back door, blood trailing. They pursued, bursting into the alley where he mounted a waiting horse. "After him," Abigail roared. They gave chase through the town, hooves thundering on cobblestones. Red Jack veered into the desert, toward a cluster of abandoned mines. Elijah's horse strained, but Abigail's stallion surged ahead. They cornered him at a derelict shaft. His mount lathered in sweat. "End of the line, Jack," Abigail snarled, dismounting with gun drawn. Red Jack laughed, clutching his wound. "You think this is about your worthless husband? He owed me money, sure, but you're the real prize." Elijah frowned, aiming his Colt. "What the hell does that mean?" Jack spat blood. "She's no widow, Cowboy. Abigail Blackwell's a legend, the giant widow they call her. Robs stagecoaches, rustles cattle, leaves no witnesses. Your ranch? She's been scouting it for weeks. Those missing cows? Her gang's handiwork." Elijah's blood ran cold. He turned to Abigail. "Is this true?" She didn't deny it. Instead, she shot Red Jack square in the chest, silencing him forever. He crumpled into the dust, eyes staring blankly at the sky. Abigail holstered her gun, facing Elijah. He was half right. "I am the giant widow. But my husband? That part's true. Jack killed him, and I've been hunting ever since. The rustling, it's how I survive. The frontier's cruel, Elijah. You know that." He backed away, revolver trained on. "Her. You used me. Played on my loneliness." She stepped closer, undeterred. "At first, maybe, but not now. I meant what I said by the fire. We could be partners. Take the bounty, start fresh." His hand trembled. "I can't trust you." Her expression hardened. "Then shoot me, Harlan. End it here." The wind whispered through the mines, carrying echoes of distant coyotes. Elijah's finger tightened on the trigger, but he couldn't pull it. She was right. He was lonely, desperately so. And in her eyes, he saw a reflection of his own broken soul. Lowering the gun, he sighed. "Damn you, Abigail!" She smiled, pulling him into her arms. "That's my cowboy." They claimed the bounty in Yuma, $500 in gold that felt heavy with blood. But as they rode back to the ranch, Elijah noticed riders shadowing them, dark figures on the horizon. "Your gang?" he asked. Abigail nodded. "Insurance. In case things went south." Unease returned. That night, back at the cabin, they celebrated with whiskey and stolen kisses. But as dawn broke, Elijah awoke to the sound of hooves. Peering out the window, he saw them, a dozen men, armed to the teeth, encircling the ranch. He shook Abigail awake. "What's this?" She dressed quickly, grabbing her rifle. "Trouble. Red Jack had friends. They must have followed us." Gunfire erupted, bullets pinging off the walls. Elijah returned fire from the window, dropping one rider. Abigail burst out the door, a whirlwind of fury, her shots felling two more. "Get to the horses!" she yelled. They fought their way to the corral, mounting up amid the chaos. Elijah's arm burned from a graze, but adrenaline pushed him on. They galloped into the canyons, pursuers hot on their trail. Deep in the maze of red rock, they lost most of them, but three remained, closing in. Abigail's horse stumbled, throwing her. She rolled, coming up firing, but one bullet found her shoulder. She grunted, blood blooming on her dress. Elijah dismounted, covering her. "We can't outrun 'em." She pushed him toward a narrow crevice. "Hide in there. I'll hold 'em off." "No, we do this together." The riders crested the ridge, guns blazing. Elijah and Abigail fought back to back, a deadly duo. One by one, the attackers fell, two shot, the last fleeing into the desert. Panting, Elijah tended her wound. "You saved me." She winced, but her eyes sparkled. "We're even now." As they bandaged up and remounted, a new resolve settled over them. The ranch was compromised, they'd have to move on. "Where to?" Elijah asked. "Anywhere," Abigail replied. "As long as it's with you." They rode west, toward California, dreams of gold and a fresh start fueling their steps. But the frontier was unforgiving, and secrets have a way of resurfacing. Months passed. They settled in a small town near the Sierra Nevadas, posing as husband and wife. Elijah worked as a blacksmith, his skills honed from ranch life. Abigail, with her stature, became a legend in her own right, helping build barns, breaking up bar fights. They were happy, or as happy as two haunted souls could be. But one fateful night, a stranger rode into town, a marshal with a badge gleaming under the lantern light. He posted wanted posters, the giant widow, wanted for rustling, murder. Reward $1,000. Accomplice, Elijah Harlan. Elijah's heart sank. We gotta run. Abigail shook her head. No more running. We face this. The marshal confronted them at the livery stable. Abigail Blackwell, you're under arrest. She stood tall, defiant. On what evidence? Witnesses from Yuma. Saw you gun down Red Jack in cold blood. Elijah stepped forward. It was self-defense. He drew first. The marshal sneered. And you, harboring a fugitive, you're coming too. A crowd gathered, murmurs rippling. Abigail's hand inched toward her hip. Don't do this, llama. We just want peace. He drew his gun. Peace? For killers? In a blur, Abigail lunged, disarming him with her superior strength. Elijah tackled him from behind, binding his hands. We ain't killers, Elijah growled, but we will defend ourselves. They fled that night, horses pounding through the mountains. Wanted now? They became outlaws by necessity, robbing banks that foreclosed on honest folk, sharing spoils with the poor. The giant widow and the lonely rancher, tales of their exploits spread like wildfire. Years blurred into legend. They evaded posses, outwitted sheriffs, their bond unbreakable. But age catches all, and in a remote cabin high in the Rockies, as snow blanketed the world outside, Abigail turned to Elijah one stormy evening. Her hair had silvered, her frame still imposing but weathered. We've had a good run, love. He nodded, holding her hand. The best. She pulled him close, her voice a whisper. I want you now. Don't move. He froze, heart pounding, as her lips met his in a final, passionate kiss. Outside, the wind howled, but inside, there was only them. Two souls forged in the fire of the Wild West, defying the odds until the end. And so their story faded into myth, whispered around campfires, the giant widow who commanded the lonely rancher's heart, ordering him to stay forever in her embrace. The frontier remembers them not as villains, but as lovers who chose each other over the law, over solitude, over everything. But wait, dear listener, that's not quite the end. Legends have a way of twisting. Some say they perished in a shootout, others that they vanished into Mexico. Me? I like to think they're out there still, riding the endless plains, free as the wind. If you've enjoyed this tale of passion, betrayal, and redemption in the Wild West, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories, and ring the bell so you never miss an upload. Share your thoughts in the comments. What would you do if the giant widow came calling? Until next time, keep the spirit of the frontier alive. Thanks for watching.